Hey my friends, it's Mike here. I'm going to be showing you the process. Well, not really a process. Today I'm just gonna paint a canvas that's already been drawn out. I already drew it out. Got all the pieces placed in there. I'm going to be using a Sharpie and going over the pond fronds so I can paint in the sky. So I'm just gonna start there. And if you just be patient for 1 second, let me get this placed in the tripod. Clip. There we go. Hopefully this will stay. Looks like it's gonna stay. All right. Yeah, the camera mount's a little tricky, so hopefully it won't fall on me. All right, I think that'll do the trick. All right, so yeah, I got this. I got the photograph off of a friend of mine's Instagram page. They went on a trip, go on a surfing trip, and I really loved. I'll show you what I'm talking about. You can kind of see it there. Had like the cool, the boat anchored here. There's like their surfboards are hanging out right here. I just love the silhouette of the palm trees and stuff. So I'm gonna try to attempt to paint this really cool sunset picture here. So I am going to be using acrylic paints, like I said. I've got just a couple colors. I got the phthalo blue, some orange, yellow, and white for right now. I'm just going to work on this top section right here. Paint that in first, and then see how it goes. Got some clouds, and I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. No, I'm just kidding. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. First of all, like I said, I'm going to so I don't lose my location on the palm fronds, I'm just going to quickly draw in just kind of give me an idea where some of these pond fronds will need to be. A lot of this will be super dark, so these are just quick indicators. Some marking where these palm fronds need to live. Alrighty, and then of course I've got the horizon there. I don't think I'm going to use any tape. A lot of times I like to use tape here, but I don't think I need that today. All right. So obviously I'm just going to start off with a nice big 1-inch square brush here. Get a little water. Dab a little bit of the water off. And let's start off with the bottom of it. I like to put it, kind of lay down some white first. I like to use my yellows, oranges, and whites first. And then I go into the blues. Otherwise I get a lot of green if I try to paint the blue part of the sky first. And then I try to grab some orange and yellow and try to blend that into the sky. And sometimes by having that blue in your brush before these colors, the orange and yellows and whites, you'll tend to get like a green tint And a little bit of green in the sky is going to be there. In this photograph, there's actually a very, very small area that has a light green in it. So I'm just going to quickly place in some white. Now, being acrylic, this does dry really fast, so I'm going to try to put it on kind of heavy and try to keep a little bit of water on it so it'll blend nicely. All right, so I got that there. It looks like this sky has way more orange than any than yellow, so I'm just going to put some yellow down first. I do like to paint my edges just in case I decide not to frame it, but this one may get framed. All right, let's place a little bit of orange in here. Ooh, that looks kind of crispy. This is going to get a really pretty pastel color. And sometimes I like to blend these colors really, really good. And sometimes I don't blend them as much to kind of break them up a little bit. In this scene here on this photograph, they are very smooth and blended. So I'm going to blend this. I like to try to get the sides while I have that color in my brush. Sometimes you'll go back and try to blend it later on, and it's tough to get that color again. I'm going to add some more orange in. This has got like a really deep orange right on the horizon. So I'm going to try to get that really nice with lots of orange. This is a cadmium orange hue is what I'm using. And then you're asking, why did I put the Sharpies on there? Well, when the paint starts drying, the Sharpie will actually start coming back through the paint. And if you don't want to redraw everything, having that Sharpie there and on these lighter colors, that Sharpie will show right back through. And then you don't have to draw it twice. So, just a little helpful hint. Now I'm using light pressure. If you notice, I'm going all the way from one side to the other. If you start right here, then you're going to leave a start mark. So I like to try to just start all the way from one side to the other. I'm going to put one more layer of this cad orange in. It'll be the final layer. With these lighter paints, sometimes you got to do 2 coats, but I'm just going to put it on pretty heavy so I can get away with 1 coat of paint. All right. I think I'm going to rinse some of this orange out of my brush. Just dab off some of that paint. All right, so I'm going to get some more white. Now that I've got all the orange and yellow placed in, I'm going to put another coat of white, titanium white. Like I said, this is acrylics using Winsor & Newton. It's a great paint actually, not good, great paint. Just going to quickly place that in. All right, I'm going to get some paint up here. The platform is making some noise today. All right, I feel like I've got enough paint placed on there. This will be wet on wet. I'm gonna get a little bit of the phthalo blue. I'm gonna start up top because obviously that's where the sky will be the darkest. Don't forget the signs. Something like that. Blue's easy to come back later on. Put the color on the side if you need to. All right, so a little more blue on top. Grab some more white. Going kind of quick on this because, like I said, this paint does dry fairly quick. A little more phthalo blue. And I'm just going to start bringing that down into that white. Grab some more white. Now you can actually put too much paint on top of the Sharpies and they will disappear depending on the color. So keep that in mind if you do that and you wonder why your Sharpie marks aren't showing up anymore. It's because you buried them too deep in paint. And sometimes when the paint dries, they'll actually show back through. Just depends on the color. All right, now this part here, I'm just going to keep blending upward. Super, super soft sky. Go back down. I want to get into that yellow and orange. I'm going to get a little more white. I'm just going to barely go into this orange color. Grabbing just a little bit of that orange and lifting it into the blue. Grab a little more white. I grab just a tiny bit of orange. I'm basically just blending into that section of white. A little more orange. Kind of placing it into that blue. I try to avoid the yellow right now because I don't want to really get any green color. I mean, if you want just a scotch of green, you could just barely put a tiny little drop of yellow on there if you want to add just a hue of green in there. And this photo actually has just the smallest amount of green in that sky. So I'm bouncing back and forth on the orange and the white. I think I'm just going to put a little bit of orange up up here. A lot of this will be covered with the pond fronds, so you really don't have to worry about doing too much up there. If you want to try to put the streaks kind of in the sky, you can use, instead of painting like this, you can paint on the edge like this, instead of like that, paint like that. And you can get in those runner clouds where they kind of run side to side instead of all nice and fluffy. All right, so I'm going to lightly just mist that painting because it's starting to dry. All right, still got the dirty brush. I'm gonna place in just a couple darker clouds with some orange, just to kind of break up the smoothness right through here, because there's a lot in this photo. There's a lot of clouds on the right around the sun. So I'm just going to use this brush here, a couple down here. All right, I'm going to drop this in the water. Just going to grab a 1/2-inch brush, 1/2-inch square. I'm going to get some orange and a tiny bit of blue, more orange, and then a little bit of white. Just going to place in a couple of these clouds. Like this. Trying to emulate the photo as much as I can. I think that'll look good, and I can take a blender brush, just the smallest amount of pressure, just kind of blend in. And I'm just barely touching the canvas here. Just trying to lightly blend in some of these clouds. Try to find my fan brush. I don't know where it's at. It'll be all right. I'll make it work. All right, I'm glad. Grab some more white. Put a couple more clouds over here. Don't put too many clouds over here, because obviously all those pond fronds are going to be over there, and we'll do all that work and then you won't be able to see them. A couple up here. There's not too much down here, basically just a bright sun. Just put a couple dark ones right on the, just hovering right there. More right there. Grab a little more of this orange and phthalo. I'm using very light pressure, placing in these clouds here. I think there's, looks like there's one up here. That one there. If you're mixing this phthalo blue and cad orange, if it gets too green on you, you can always grab a little bit of white and tone it down. I'm gonna put one up here too. Alrighty. Just gonna kind of scrape a little bit of paint into that. Right. Just gonna get just a little more. I'm gonna put just a little bit of a lingering cloud way over here. Get some white. A little too much blue. I'm just going to blend this in. A little bit of pressure. Alrighty. Alright. I think I'm going to leave well enough alone on that. This bottom section, definitely dry. Alright. So now, I think I'm going to place in the location of the sun. Just gonna get some tiny little brush, another little flat brush. This guy here is not too much to him. Just gonna get a glob of white. I'm gonna put this just right there. Doesn't necessarily need to be a perfect circle, it just needs to be a very bright point. And then I'm gonna get some yellow. I left the white in the brush. Just using very light pressure. We'll bring this yellow all the way down to the horizon. This is just the first coat. And you can kind of see the orange through it. So this just being the first coat. Sometimes you can add a little white to that yellow, make it a little less transparent. Put just a little up here in these clouds, because this yellow is definitely reflecting. Just gotta be careful if you get way up here, don't get any blue in your brush. Let's just wait on that until that dries a little more. A little more white. We want this to be like a hot spot. These sun rays kind of really fan out good ways. Like I said before, I'm just using a small amount of pressure. Just adding a little more white into my brush. So what I'll do is get this placed in, let this dry a little bit. I'm going to just put a little bit of white and yellow. I like to put white on one side, flip it over, put some yellow on the other side, is what I'll do a lot of times. And let's see. I'm just going to put a little bit on the bottom of these clouds here, because that sun is basically reflecting some of that beautiful light up into these clouds. And I'm even going to add just a scotch of orange on some of these clouds too, on the bottom of these clouds. I grabbed a little bit of that orange and blue on this one. All right, that's drying quickly. All right, so I'm gonna get some of that blue and orange out of my brush. Let's put this right here. Okay, some more yellow. Right down to the water's edge. I could zap this with the hair dryer to make it dry a little quicker, but yeah, we'll just let it dry naturally. All right, so we still have a lot of the orange showing through under that yellow we placed in there, so I really want to try to put another coat of yellow on it. Put it on a little thicker. Tiny bit of white. Put a little bit of white under that cloud right there. will do is I'll let, this is eventually going to have a ray coming all the way up. Yeah, literally it goes all the way to the top. We'll get that later, after everything dries. But I'll just at least start it right here, because we need this white to dry. Grab a tiny bit more yellow. Just add in some little small areas of white and yellow. Let's get right on down here towards the horizon. A little more white. Knock some of this yellow off my brush. Grab just a little bit of white and orange. I want to try to blend this a little more. The transition between the two are just a little bit loud. I'm going to soften them up some. It can be a little tricky when this paint is dry and you're trying to put wet paint on the dry paint. It can be a little tricky. That looks a little better, because this is a very soft transition. Trying to grab a little bit of that yellow paint that's still wet, drag it into the dry paint. I think I'm going to put a couple more clouds over here. Got a little bit of that blue and orange. With a tiny bit of white, just to try to get it a little less green. It's kind of like a gray color. Just using the smallest amount of pressure. Just kind of doing a circular motion on these clouds. Tiny bit more white. This is like a big void. This section needs some attention. I feel like there's no clouds right in here. Tiny bit of orange. place down the orange first, and then I'm going to take the white underneath it. Yeah, you know, all these clouds have different looks to them, so some of them have like a little glow around the bottom from that sun casting up. All right. I think clean my brush out. I'm going to try to add a little more white. This is drying a little bit slowly, but I think it's enough to add a little more white into it. It's like sun rays are just kind of I'll have to put those in after everything's dry. We'll do a dry brush on that. That might be a little tricky, but I will do my best to show you how I do that. Just keep on adding some white in there. All right, so we're gonna let all that dry for now. What I'm gonna do now, since we have kind of the same colors that are in the water, I'm going to just do a light tracing of the boat, anchor, there's the bimini top, console, and the motor, just so we don't lose it. And then get in there and put the water in. Pardon my microphone cord. It's kind of annoying. So put it behind my shoulder. Eventually I'm gonna get me a cordless one. Yeah. All right. I think I'm gonna go back to this large 1-inch brush. Get some of the water out of it. Just a little bit. All right. So we're gonna put in the horizon. I need some more white. Put another glob of white right there. All right. So while that's drying, we're gonna put in some ocean. We're gonna go straight into the phthalo blue. Kind of load up both sides pretty good. Put a little bit of white on there. really lifting up into that first layer of blue. Just using a little bit of pressure, not a whole lot. Get a little more white. Still using very little pressure, just enough to lay down the paint. I'm gonna grab just a little bit of that orange in there to kind of dull it out a little bit. Like this photograph, these pit water is kind of toned down. It's not so vibrant because of the sunset. So like the true full-on tropical colors. Got a little bit of orange in there from the sky. Keep adding my white in. Just a tiny bit more orange with the white. Now through this middle section right here, this is where we're going to definitely have some of that reflection. I'm not going to grab any yellow because that is going to turn green. I like to blend some of that orange sky into the water. Get a little bit of orange on one side, a little bit of white on the other side. Getting that reflection. If you get a little too much orange in there, then just grab a little more white and lighten it up. Don't forget the sides. This is coming along nicely. I think there's a little more. This has got a fair amount of orange and white in this section of the photograph. So I'm just going to keep blending some more. I'm going to get a tiny bit of this blue. That was too much blue. It's all right. Here we go. Just add some more white. There's the water line. The edge of the water is right there. That's the edge of the water. My cord has made it back into the painting. I'm taking the brush and turning it this way Actually creates these really cool waves and ripples. Put a fair amount of paint on there. Flip it over. Just keep on blending. There's a little bit of grayish hue in here. Because like I said, this is a sunset, so there's not those really bold, bright colors. Need a little more orange in that area. Whoa, way too much orange. This particular beach has no waves at all. It is a sheet of glass. So these ripples, we're just really going to smooth out all the way to the edge of the shoreline. I can still see the boat, barely. I haven't buried it quite yet in the paint. I'm getting really close to saying that this is probably good enough. Sometimes you can keep going. And then you get to the point where you put too much paint on it and you tell yourself, I should have stopped earlier. This section here has got this really nice, vibrant orange in there. From that hot spot right there. Trying to recreate that. That orange really fans out. We'll put a little bit of reflecting orange right down here on the edge of the water. And let's see. Let's put a little teeny ripple coming in right here. There's a ripple right here. All that is going to be pond fronds. think that will do it. And then we'll add in that I'm going to put just a tiny bit of blue right there. Darken that up just a little bit. I think I'm going to leave that enough alone. Leave that well enough alone. And there's one little wave right there, right along the edge of the shore. All right, let's stop right there. All right, that's dry, so let's drop the brush in the water. Gonna get my tiny flat brush again. Let's go back in there and get another glob of white. Let's not put our hand in the wet paint. Let's put this hot spot back in. Make a nice little circle. That brightest section of the sun is right in the middle. I'm going to put just a couple little flares underneath it, just to make it a little brighter. Right down on the horizon. I've got even a tinier brush. Let's do that. It's more white. Just placing in a couple more super bright spots. Just to make it really pop. Right on down to the horizon. Because we want that, we would think you wouldn't even look at it because it's so bright. Yep. All righty. This is almost dry. We can put in that reflection on the water. It's pretty much a we want it perfectly straight. So I'm just going to lightly touch the canvas there. And I'm going to grab some white and some yellow. Let me use a part of this scale ruler that I don't use. This edge here I don't use. And then I'll wipe it off real quick. So I'm just going to use this as a guide. There was some wet paint right there. I just dragged my finger through. It's alright. I'm only going to make this about 1/8 of an inch wide. Let's just wipe that off. Now I'm just going to take this and lightly just, this actually has a tiny bit of orange in it. I'm just going to wiggle it across. Definitely turns more white as it gets closer to the sand. And let's see. Let's get just a tiny bit more orange right up here. Right on the horizon. Some white. I got just a little bit of white into my water, so I gotta fix that. Oh, nice crispy edge right there. There we go. Rinse that blue out. Get some more straight white. Just constantly brightening up that reflection. Alright. I think I'm just going to put in just a couple little strays, because it has like a glow in the photograph, and I feel like this is turning into like a laser beam reflection, and I don't want that. You don't want to look like it's a laser beam heading to the beach. So I'm just with a very small amount of paint, a little bit of pressure. Just gonna add a couple little flares to the side. Yeah, that's looking better. I'm kind of pulling that paint that's in that vertical reflection, just kind of pulling it to the side, like a dry brush effect. And then what I'll do is I'll come back and put a little more straight white on there. Just in the middle, kind of brighten it up a little bit more. good enough. All right. Now, I need to let that dry before I can put in the sunbeam. So for now, I think I'm going to take some black, make a little bit of a gray color. Just put a drop of black right there. I'm using this fluid Mars black. It's already watered down. It's works really well. So I don't have to water down the black. I'm just gonna make me a really nice light gray color for the boat. And I can always put the shadows in and stuff later. Let's paint the center console. This is kind of pretty much a silhouette, so it will be dark. There's the boat motor. Alright, there we go. Got the pretty much the shape of the boat in there. We can get to the details later. And then it's going to have the awning. Let's just use a little darker gray. All right, so the awning would be roughly about I am using a very small detail brush. This is like a 5/0, whatever that means. It's a tiny little one. It's a tiny little teeny brush. I'm just going to, if you don't have enough paint on there, it's not going to show up on the canvas. So we got the awning in there to keep the sun off of you. And I'm gonna come in with the tiniest amount of paint to put in the supports. Yeah, that's it. Supports of the bimini top. Tiniest amount of paint there. Barely touching the canvas. Basically using a couple bristles. I've got to put a cross support in there. And I'll put a cross support here. And I think there's a little cross support right there. And then there's a rope that you normally have to secure the bimini top with right there. Let's put a little shadow on the back of that center console. There's a dark area right along the lip of the boat. And there's a little shadowing going on over here from the back side of the boat, front of the boat. All right. Let's add this little section right here. The bimini top looks a little wonky. There we go. And the anchor, gotta have an anchor, rope. And then we need our reflection in the water. The nose of the boat is reflecting towards the side. Just a tiny bit more dark paint. Almost like it's pretty much black down here. From that shadow. Let's get it right snugged up to the bottom of that boat. All right, got that there. Let's see, we need to add a little more sunburst towards the back of this here. So let's clean out the brush. That doesn't dry on us. Let's get some white. Put in a couple just little areas of white in the water. So we got some reflection. Let's get a little yellow. Now that that blue is dry, we can definitely get away from having any green appearing. So this water reflecting, reflection on that water. A little hit or miss here and there, trying to get it close to that back of that boat motor. Yeah, there we go, there we go. We're getting it now. I'm going to bust apart some of that hard lines. Looks like a laser beam. And let's do that. Yeah. All right. It's too much yellow right here. Let's just bury it in some white. Yep. Knock off some of this yellow. All right, got that there. I'm gonna come back up here and put just a little more white on this top section, on that reflection. Let's make this just a tiny bit wider. Like that. All right, I think I'm gonna stop there for now. Let's see, there's just a tiny bit of white showing. Let's just put a little shadowing, a little color of the white on the boat, just a tiny bit. All right, just a tiny little bit of white on the back of the center console, like that. All right, there's that part. There is another sunbeam coming down this way, but we're gonna wait and get all the beach painted in before I do the sunbeam that actually literally goes from top to bottom. And that part is going to be towards the end of the painting. All right, so for now, all that, oh yeah, all dry. I think for now, I'm going to just take a break on the water in the boat, which is pretty much, I feel like it's done. I'm gonna put in a couple of the pond fronds. Trying to get my photograph here on the computer centered so I can see the that's a hard one to say. Pond fronds. Pom fronds. All right, I'm going to use back to the flat brush, the 1/2 inch flat brush. Yep, I'm gonna go back to this one. All right, so let's move this out of the way. Let's just load the brush up with some black. I'm just using some very light pressure. Let's just place in some of these I put in the pond fronds. I try to leave, sometimes you want to leave some of the sky showing. And sometimes you want them really thick. But it really just depends on the look you're wanting. There's so many different ways you can do these pond fronds. I think everybody kind of has their own technique. So still using that fluid paint because it's nice and thin already, straight out of the bottle. Now this particular section right here is really filled in. Like there's not very much sky showing. And I always kind of tell myself you can always add more pond fronds in. So sometimes less is more. Because if you put too many, you're not going to be able to just take them away. So it becomes where you just have to live with it. Almost grabbed the white. Move that water out of the way. They're pretty dense pond fronds in this photograph, so I'm just going to lightly place them in and step back and, observe to see where I could add some more in there. Later on, and then I can always add some more in. I need some more paint. I think I'm gonna add a little bit of this Liquitex Mars Black. Kind of dries with a little bit glossier look. So I think I'm gonna mix the two together. What is that? Big old paint booger. Big old paint booger. All right. Yeah, I'm making a mess. But that's okay. All right, now I mix these two together because I'm worried that all these will be ultra flat when the paint dries. And I've got some satin finish going on in some of this painting here, and you know, I want to try to mix the two flats together to kind of give me a little bit of look of gloss and flat result when it dries. Now, if your paint's too thick and it's not giving you a nice crispy end with that brush stroke, see now how crispy that edge is now? I just had to add a little water to it. But you gotta make sure you don't have too much water, and then you go to flick it, and then you get these little dots on your painting. This is kind of one of those sections where you just keep on painting little pieces here and pieces there, and it's kind of like you just come filling it in where you get to the point where you feel like you've got enough coverage there, and then you say, okay, that's like super thick through that section, and then you get to another section where you feel like you still need to have some of that sky showing through. Like I said, if you get too much pond fronds in there, it kind of makes it look like a feather. Where you can definitely tell that there's a pond frond in the picture, but you wonder, is that a feather? No, it's not supposed to be a feather. It's supposed to be part of a tree. So, one of those things where you just have to take your time and keep placing them in where you feel like you've got enough light shining through. Yeah, getting there. Probably do this sand area another day. I just want to get these palm fronds placed in so we can get that step of the painting done. This whole section right here pretty much is pretty much buried in paint, black paint. There's not really much beach or water showing. So we're going to really fill this in pretty much all the way with black. And I'll leave an occasional little gap here and there. But yeah, for the most part, this is all lots of thick palm tree section through here. See that guy right there? We'll just lightly place him in. And the palm fronds are not on the top of that. They're all hanging down, but I got to put the beach in first. So we'll just wait on that. These guys are stretching down where they're just about touching the other palm frond below it. And this has got plenty of paint here. So it's almost pretty much disappeared. All right. I think for now, I am going to stop. I'll do a part 2 on this painting because I kind of feel like it's at a stopping point where I can easily pick back up on the part 2. So yeah, I'm just gonna put a couple little vertical pieces right through there. All right, yeah. Let's stop there, and then I will do another video on painting the, let's see what the photo has here. We'll do the next section will be the sand, the beds of seagrass that's on the sand. We got some surfboards we got to put in. And then obviously when all this is done, I'm going to put in the giant beam of light casting off of the reflection of the sun. And then we'll put in the rest of the palm trees and sign it. Alrighty. Alrighty. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for part 2 of the beach. Thank you for watching, and see you on part 2.